Welcome to the T-Pac Arcade. Today's game is Space Defending Force, or SDF, for the Nintendo Famicom. In this 1990 shoot-'em-up from HAL Laboratory, you're in space defending something from, something else. Aliens, probably. SDF really does things by the book as far as space shooters go. 7 vertically scrolling stages present you with undulating popcorn enemies, asteroid belts and turrets, motherships outfitted with cannons, tight space station corridors, and of course, 2 tried-and-true hallmarks of the genre, ancient pyramids and caverns made of nerves and guts. HAL Laboratory did their shoot-'em-up homework, and they checked all the boxes. Even the power-ups are relatively standard. Upgrade capsules release speed-ups and 1 of 3 auxiliary weapons. There's a spread shot that also increases your projectile surface area by changing them from donut holes to full-on donuts, a side pulse that's great for clearing enemies from the walls and even includes a tertiary forward shot at full power, and a laser that's basically useless because it's so narrow. Unless you collect 3 laser upgrades in a row, because then you get 4 lasers. Now that's the kind of buy one get one free math I appreciate in video games. There is a unique element to this power-up system though. Upgrades outfit you with 2 pink satellite pods, which theatrically dance themselves around the screen before finally deciding to dock on your ship. Because deep down in their hearts, they don't want to kill the aliens, they want to dazzle them in proper Broadway fashion. In any case, the A button switches the pod configuration from the front of your ship, where they fire your special weapon, to the rear of your ship, which reverts you back to the standard shot. You might wonder why that's an option, but in factory stages, it's really useful to switch between side pulses to pick off wall turrets, and the regular forward Vulcan to blast everything that comes from above, like that weird nondescript tentacle organ in the glass capsule, another indispensable trope on HAL Laboratory's shoot-'em-up checklist. The best part about the satellite upgrades, though, is that they can take a few hits for you, or sometimes a lot of hits. I mean, they miraculously held out for the entire Stage 4 boss fight when it looked like I was actively inhaling guided missiles for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Unfortunately, when you do eventually lose a satellite pod, your cannon upgrade goes away, even if the other pod is still hanging on, all sad and lonely without its Broadway dance partner to dazzle these aliens into submission. In which case, you might as well just use that remaining satellite as a projectile battering ram. Each level in SDF has a mid-boss and an end-boss. Most of them are just variations of your standard spacecraft with some kind of glass eye in the middle, but occasionally you'll get a robot, a giant brain that shoots maze lasers, or laser mazers as I like to call them, and a creepy golden face surrounded by what looks like an inside-out pair of lungs. This may sound pretty wild, but as I've said, HAL Laboratory did their homework, and everything here is a shoot-'em-up staple more or less. Even the final boss, which is basically a mutant embryonic space demon. Newcomers to the genre might be baffled by such a monstrosity, but space shooter veterans see something like that and go, ah yes, the evil alien fetus. I was wondering when one of these would show up. This genre staple methodology extends to the visuals of SDF too. As far as I'm concerned, being derivative is never a bad thing, as long as the execution is well done. And that's definitely the case here. I'm especially fond of the sci-fi sets, and how the backdrop details tend to hint at the environment just enough to immerse you in the theme without cluttering the playfield. There are plenty of neat enemy designs too, like the laser machines that hinge back and forth like desk lamps of death, the meat wads that crawl around and then blossom into nasty, bloody flesh pine cones, and the multi-legged robot wall crawlers, or crawler wallers as I like to call them. The music in SDF is really fantastic. Every track seems to fit the mood of the levels perfectly, like the plodding, sparse chiptune that follows the approach of the Starship Fleet in Stage 2, and the ominous trills and constant nerve-wracking bass line of the music in the final level. I appreciate how the game prioritizes the music by making your cannon mute unless its projectiles make contact with an obstacle. As much as I love me some good 8-bit pew-pew-pew blaster noises, they can get grating when you hear them non-stop for an entire game. Especially if you're cheating with a turbo fire controller like me, in which case pew-pew-pew is more like pew-pew-pew-pew-pew-pew-pew. I was hoping Turbo Fire would be the only cheat I needed to finish this game, but it got so hard after level 3 that I had to rely on save states too. To be fair, SDF does offer unlimited continues, and even a hidden difficulty selection if you hold A, B, and start at the title screen. But even easy mode wasn't enough to counteract how brutal this game can get. Take, for example, the torpedo wall section in level 5. No matter where you run, they will find you and they will ruin you. Just like that song you hate that pops up into your head at least once a week, whether you like it or not. Not to mention that opening area in the final level, where you need perfect timing to dash through the stalagmites that slowly close themselves off, only to run straight into a glowing orb of death, which is just plain mean. My favorite part of SDF is this one honeycomb gauntlet, where you have to hammer these floating spheres with your cannon to blast openings between each compartment. It's just super satisfying to carefully maneuver through, especially with the added danger of scuttling bug enemies and the occasional shielded sphere. But if I could change one thing about SDF, I'd just make it less mean. Honestly, it would have the potential to be one of my favorite shoot-'em-ups of all time, if only it would stop calling me names and stealing my lunch money. I can appreciate a difficult game, but not when it feels just straight up malicious most of the time. But overall, I can't fault SDF too much. HAL Laboratory filled out every box on their standard space shooter checklist, and as long as I've got laser mazers and crawler wallers and pulsating meat caverns to blow up, I certainly can't complain.